Hi there, I'm Tercy Engelhardt, and I want to welcome you to the Unreasonably Grateful podcast. The subtitle of this podcast is Living in Grace by Choice. So, I actually want to say something about that. I don't usually do that here, but what would it be like if you lived in the state of grace? Grace being peaceful, balanced, mm, compassionate, kind, Hmm. Expansive, loving, forgiven, hopeful. I don't know. How would you maybe define what the state of grace might be like? Anyway, and then think about what would it be like if you could live in it? Well, one of the accesses to that is gratitude. When we're grateful, there really is an opening into that state of grace. And gratitude and grace actually come from the same word. It's the same base word. So, okay, now that I've got my hair out of my eyes, welcome. I'm so grateful that you're here. I was just noting this is like 204 episodes. So, I started this podcast at the beginning of our COVID time as a way to stay connected and to share and to reach out. Other people had shared their stories with me. It made a difference in my journey, eased my healing, and helped me along the way. It was like stepping stones. And so while I don't have your answers, I believe that you do. Hearing somebody else's story often opens up something for us. It helps us see things about ourselves, sometimes in a new way, because we all have this view of who we are, and it inhibits us seeing ourselves in new ways because those views of who we are have become part of our identity. And whatever happens goes through that filter of who we believe we are. And it's difficult to lift those or see around those. This last week, we actually went up to Coeur d'Alene, my husband and I, and led a mini workshop with innovators, cooperative group of entrepreneurs. And I noticed that there was a pretty consistent conversation about authentic or, yeah, like, or I guess they used the word ingenuous. Like, I don't want to say something that's disingenuous. So I stopped one of the people and I asked them, so when you say things about yourself, are those genuine or disingenuous? Because I want you to consider that we're really good at criticizing ourselves or judging ourselves. And what we think that's genuine. But I want you to consider that all of that is just a created context that's built by uh, who we believe we are. And oftentimes it's gathered from experiences, both good and painful, and sometimes negative or bad. And then we begin to define who we are. But I want you to consider that that's not who you are. Who you are, who you were created as, is really this vessel through which love or God can express. You've probably heard that people say, like, we're the arms and legs of God. We're the ones who serve and allow love, unconditional love, to flow through us or not. And mostly it's a very restricted flow because many of us don't feel worthy of receiving and giving that kind of love. And that's what I think healing is. That's what I think healing from addiction or any behavior that inhibits that flow is all about. Anyway, jumped ahead of myself. I don't have your answers, you do. So I'm sharing tidbits of my journey, my 38-year journey of recovery from living an addictive lifestyle for 20 years, from 16 years old to 36. And now, um, yeah, it's such an amazing opportunity to just share some of the wisdom that, yeah, I've been able to just observe and see and practice over these years of reclaiming my life and shifting my view of myself until I'm more of who I was or believe I was created to be and less of the personality or survival survivalist I became. And I think I mentioned last week I'm currently supporting one of my grandkids, and that's also influencing what I'm sharing with you now. Because again, I'm back at that age that I was when the abuse and the trauma happened in my life, and supporting her as she walks through. How does she begin to get a glimpse of who she really is? And anyway, okay, so the title of this episode is Where There's Resistance, There's Opportunity. So, normally, what happens is when you and I experience resistance, we have a tendency to avoid it, to push it away, and then to perhaps not go that way again because there's this experience of tension, fear, panic, judgment, whatever it is. So, what I'm recommending, however, is where there's resistance, there's opportunity. There's an opportunity to grow, there's an opportunity to learn, there's an opportunity to get beyond that resistance. And when you and I get beyond the resistance, we open up another channel. We become more available for the unconditional love that flows in and through and around us all the time to flow. And I think I've shared this with you before. It's definitely my kind of topic for 2024 is that I actually believe that we're all here to expand our capacity to let that love in, experience that love, and then share that love, let that love out, let it flow in and through us. And healing is about that. Healing is like unclogging the flow, so to speak. So, what I want you to do this week is just look at where you're resistant, where you feel the resistance, where perhaps you avoid going, those internal spaces, not necessarily external places, but those internal spaces. Where do you avoid going? Where do you avoid looking at, diving in, digging deeply? What are the conversations you avoid having, maybe even with yourself? And consider that those are growth opportunities. And then what is there to learn? What is it that you're afraid of? What is it that's holding you back? And see if you can't begin to identify that what that is and make peace with it. Maybe there's something to apologize for. Maybe there's something to forgive. Maybe there's a request to make. Maybe there's just to let yourself feel it and then let it go so that you and I can become clearer, cleaner, more available vessels for unconditional love to express itself through us. Okay? Take that on this week. And I'll be here and I'll see you next week.